Hello everybody, this video is in lieu of the normal face-to-face briefing that I would do with the manufacturing team challenge prospective competitors. This time for 2020 what we're looking at is doing this remotely. There will be some changes to how we do the qualifiers as well, but more information on that will come to you directly. So for now this is just going to concentrate on the main test project and elements that you will have to undertake during November's live competition. Firstly, we're going to look at this. This is the contact email address for myself. Hopefully you have this anyway, and you'll probably have my telephone number on the bottom of it if you have any problems or have any queries. My intention is to give you this video to watch, go through, discuss in your teams, and then come back to me for a question and answer session which we will organise via Google Hangouts, so that anything that you are unsure about can be checked. Alternatively, feel free to email me on that email address and we can go through anything that you're unsure about then. And first of all, this year's brief is a competition based around a personal transport system. We need you to make a lightweight, easily transported personal transport system that will fit into a rucksack. The rucksack is up to you, but there is a criteria that will look at how large that rucksack and how much the item actually weighs. So lightweight is the key, small, portable, but yet functional. So there's going to be a fine balance between those. The main project itself is deliberately quite open this year, to allow you to create and use your mind as much as possible to come up with a solution that's as diverse, new, as old. It can be exactly the same as something from before, or it can be something completely new. It's up to you. So we've left the criteria really open so that you can choose. But broadly speaking, the competition will still follow a set format. The main project this year is worth 41.5% of the marks. That is quite a low mark, and even if you scored 100% on the main project without the other elements, you will struggle to get anywhere near the medals. The second part is the main project costs. That comes to 5%. We'll go into those in a little more detail. Portfolio A is worth 10% of the marks, and that's something that you bring with you, something that you could have done before the competition, so you should be looking to maximise those marks when you arrive. And Portfolio B, which is the CAD drawings, is worth 13.5% of the marks. There will also be an additional 3 surprise projects worth 30% of the marks. So please note the surprise projects are worth almost as much as the main project, and the costings and the Portfolio A and B are worth almost as much again. So it's critical that you realise that the main project is not the only element of the competition. Starting with the main project, we've left it, as I said before, deliberately really open, so you could come up with a nice flying car that folds into a suitcase. I'd absolutely love to see that, and if you didn't win with that and you could build it in 3 days, I would be absolutely amazed. Something that's a little bit more likely is something like an electric push bike that folds, such as the one on the screen, although I would suggest that might be a complicated build for 3 days as well, but you may have another similar solution. Or you could go for something such as an electric skateboard. Very easy to put into a rucksack, not so easy to ride, perhaps not so manoeuvrable as some of the other options, but it's up to you on which way and which direction you want to take. So the main project itself has 21 elements, and some of those elements have sub-elements, so there are quite a few criteria to hit. I think it's around the 30 mark. So the following slides, I'm going to go through each one of those individually and explain what we mean, make sure that you're happy with what's required. So the first one is toolbox weight. Now this is the first time that this has been brought into the UK national competition, but it's a normal mainstay of an international competition. So we brought it in to bring parallels. So this requires you to design the item to be made with the minimum amount of tooling and the minimum amount of jigs and etc. that you bring with you. This is part of our sustainability drive, really. So instead of shipping large amounts of components, large amounts of equipment around the country. We'd rather you just brought a little handbag. But of course you may need more than that. It does depend on your design. And now some people will come with maybe 50 or 60 tools, and some might come with a lot more, some might come with a few less, but that is up to you. This does not include the equipment for the surprise projects, because all of that will be supplied for you, so you don't need to bring anything for that. So as part of your design, the idea is try and design it to be made simply and made with a minimum amount of tools, and that will bring your toolbox weight down. How we score it is quite simple. On familiarization day, everybody's toolbox will be weighed before it's unpacked. That will be all the tools you bring, all the jigs and fixtures you bring, and all the raw materials you bring. That will then be put into a spreadsheet which calculates it against everybody else's. The lowest weight toolbox will receive 2 marks. The heaviest toolbox will receive 0 marks, and everybody else will be graded proportionally in between. So if you're halfway in between, you should get 1 mark. If you're 3/4 of the way in between, you should get 1.5 marks, etc. Then we have work quality and visual appearance. Again, another international mainstay, and something that we're moving towards in the national to bring it into line. This is quite a simple thing. The judges will look at your finished product, usually on the morning of test day. They will decide, is it done to an acceptable standard, and we'll look at the different elements and facets. Does it look like a good piece? Could we market it? Could we sell it? Is it done to a good standard, or are there burrs left on it? Are there marks? Are things undone? Are there anything rough? So it's about the finish of your product, really, more than anything else. So how we mark that is each judge will be asked to mark it from 0 to 3. 0 being below industry standard, 3 being the absolute excellence of market standard. The 2 marks allocated will be split into equal proportions for each judge, and you will receive 1/3 of the mark for each point that the judge gives you. So if a judge gives you 2 and there are 3 judges, you'll receive 2/9 of the 2 marks for that judge. So the judgment scale literally looks at this. Scale 0, project does not meet industry standard. That would be unfinished. That would be very, very poor. Wheels buckling, not fitted correctly. It could be motor not connected, all those kinds of things. Scale 1 then, now that satisfies the industry standard, so it's better than that. It is complete, it's finished, it's assembled, it's operational, but it doesn't have any outstanding features. It's just a plain bog standard design, something very basic, very easy to have made. Perhaps the finish on it isn't very good. Okay, so satisfies the market standard. We're now looking at something that's complete and works, as in scale 1. We're also looking for a finished exterior, coloured on all visible surfaces, has all burrs removed and no sharp edges, all screws and fixings are hidden or are part of the aesthetic design, and you will be consulted as to whether that's the case or not. Minor blemishes, bubbles or defects can be seen in the surface finish, but nothing major. No big huge scratches or marks or indentations or anything like that. And then the final one for scale 3 exceeds market standard. Now, to exceed market standard, you have to have satisfied everything on scale 1, scale 2, and the system has all market standard features, plus a flawless finish to the exterior, no blemishes, bubbles or defects can be seen on the surface, and the addition of graphics or a logo on the exterior to attract potential buyers. We all know big brands, Apple, Microsoft, Nike. You all know the logo for those brands, and it is the logo that brings in a lot of their business. So we're looking for something similar to that as well. All drive components, save steering, wheels and axles, are covered from user access, so we shouldn't be able to see the chain or motor or any cogs or anything like that. Anything that could cause a potential trap hazard or potentially hurt the user, we don't want to be able to access that. Wheels and steering, obviously that has to be an exception, and the same goes for axles. So we're going to do, right at the very end of the competition, we're going to do something that's quite new, and I'm quite looking forward to, which is the judges packing and unpacking evaluation. Now you're asked for instructions on how to remove the item from the rucksack in the portfolio A. You're asked then how to set it up, and you should be giving all clear labelled instructions throughout the portfolio to show how to do that in very simple English, very detailed if possible. The more detailed, the better the mark will be for this, because the judges, using nothing but those instructions, have to remove your item from the rucksack, unpack it, and drive it 2 meters, and then pack it back away. And we're going to time that to give us an indication of how simple it is and how easy it is, but that's not the main criteria. So the main criteria will be ease of unpacking, so a judgment of the setup instructions. So if we can't do it using your instructions, you'll receive no marks. If we can do it but we don't feel the instructions are clear, you'll get 0.2 marks. If the instructions are clear but it's difficult to set up, you'll get 0.4 marks. And clear instructions and an easy setup will gain you 0.6 marks. The second sub-criteria is ease of operation. So, could not do the operation with the instructions, so we don't know how to turn it on, or we don't know how to make it move, we don't know how to get it going, you'll receive 0 marks. Could do the operation, but the instructions were not clear. In other words, we can figure it out for ourselves using the instructions, but there are some inaccuracies, and we struggle to do it. Again, clear instructions, but the setup was difficult, so it's a difficult thing to get into place and get going, will give you 0.4 marks. Clear instructions and easy to set up, 0.8 marks. So these are things that you've got to take into account when you're not just doing your portfolio A, but also the design. And the last one, ease of packing. So could not do the operation with the instructions, you'll receive 0 marks. Could do the operation, but the instructions were not clear, 0.2 marks. Clear instructions, but it was difficult, 0.4 marks, and clear instructions and easy to pack away, 0.6 marks. So when I say easy to pack away, one person should be able to do this as a single person transport system that we're looking for. So if it takes 2 or 3 for us to do it during this one, then you're likely to get the full marks. The team will also be challenged to do this a little bit earlier on in the day. However, you can use the entire team in this instance. You will be able to pack and repack and unpack and help each other to get into a system to do it as fast as possible. So what you'll be asked to do is unpack it from a rucksack and board the vehicle or put the vehicle on, however it works, drive for a distance, and then stop and repack it, and all of that will be timed. The fastest team to do that will gain 2 marks. The slowest team will gain 0, and everybody else will be in between. So if the fastest team is 30 seconds, the slowest team is 60 seconds, the 30-second team gets 2 marks, 60-second team gets 0 marks, and a 45-second team would receive 1 mark. Now here's the problem that you have. How fast are the other teams going to do it? And frankly, until we actually do that test on test day, on the Saturday at the competition, we won't know the answer to that. So it's critical to try and make it as simple and easy and quick to set up as you can. So the evaluation, you'll be given a 3, 2, 1 countdown, and a nominated team member will run 1 meter to the drive line. You then unpack and set up the personal system, but you are allowed assistance from the rest of the team. The nominated team member will then use the personal transport system to convey him under power 2.5 meters. Once past that line, turn 180 degrees and drive back across the line. Once that line is crossed, you'll pack the personal transport system into the backpack. The team member must then wear the backpack with both shoulder straps in place before they can move to the competition to complete the competition by crossing the line a further 1 meter away. So we're literally going to be moving 3.5 meters, turning round and coming back. Judges will time all of this, and you'll be asked to declare by putting your hands up when you've finished, and as soon as your hands are up and finished, we will check that both the backpack with both shoulder straps is in place and you've crossed the line, and the time will stand. So weight. we are going to basically weigh your entire system. That'll be the rucksack, batteries, control system, and the personal transport vehicle all in one. Excuse me. And we will then see whose is the lightest, and the lightest team will gain 2 marks. The heaviest team, 0. And the other 4 teams in between will be marked proportionally again. This is what we call CIS scoring. There's quite a lot of it in most MTC test projects, and it's a way of sorting who performs best from who performs worst from who performs in a mediocre manner. So now we're looking on 5.6 for ergonomic hand controls. So 3 judges will hold the hand controls. For speed, the hand controls must have an easy to press dead man switch to cut power when released. So it could be part of the speed control mechanism, such as a trigger, but when it's released it must spring open and stop all power. Or it could be a separate button that you press and the speed is controlled some other way. So for having a dead man switch that cuts all power, you receive 0.5 marks. For having speed control, you receive 0.5 marks. And for having an ergonomically easily to handle control that's got a nice button or a nice speed control system, or both, or one or the other, whichever way it's being done, and it can all be operated by just one hand, not 2, you will receive 1 mark. So we will look at the control system and we'll test it ourselves, we'll handle it, and we'll see how it goes. We will also ask you to hold the personal transport system up off the ground while the power is on, and release the dead man switch to show that it operates. The system must come to a sharp or gradual stop. We're not bothered. Either way, whichever. A sharp stop is more dangerous but could be more desirable in an emergency situation. That's up to you to decide. We'll also hold it off the ground again, and you will demonstrate the speed control, and we need to observe a definite change in speed as you maneuver it. And then the judge will operate the hand controls with one hand only, and the judge will do that to ascertain how easy it is. Okay. So safety, this is a mainstay, always there, always the same. There are 4 points to the safety. So all movable components must be guarded from access with an item larger than a bar of 12mm and 75mm in diameter. What this actually means is if you have a gap but it's only 6mm wide, you couldn't get a finger in, so we're fine with that, that's acceptable. But if you have a 14mm gap that a finger could go in and be potentially trapped, then that is more of a problem. The only movable parts that are allowed to be seen is the wheels of the system, and this does not apply during the setup and unpacking, because obviously with folding mechanisms other things may become exposed. All conductive components and electrical circuits shall be guarded from access. That's fine to see wires. What's not fine is to see the conductor at the end of the wires, so the conductors should be fitted in tightly so no actual wire conductor can be seen. All sharp edges should be removed. The last thing you would want with a sellable product is to pick it up and slice the hand of the user. So there should be no sharp edges or burrs or anything that could cause a potential problem. The personal transport system should also have appropriate warning labels. These are things such as trap hazard, crushing hazard, affix this pin before use, maybe a safety label that you want to use. Danger, electrical shock hazard on control systems if the user was to open a box that contained, for example, a set of relays that power your motors. So all of these things, and they are up to you which are appropriate, but if you don't have any labels, then obviously you won't get the mark, because there are at least four that should apply in every single instance. So let's have a look at those in a little more detail. So what will happen here is all movable components are guarded. We test it with the rod as specified a little earlier. Every time we find an area that is not compliant with that, we will remove 0.2 marks from the total of 1. So as soon as we find 5 areas, your score is 0. And this is something that we find quite often because the competition is quite rushed, because people are getting behind on things. They tend to miss these areas out, and it's quite common to for teams to drop a couple of marks across these areas. Not desirable. The best thing you can do is maximize this score because they're quite easy to get. Conductive components, again, same rule. We have 1 mark given automatically, and 0.2 marks is subtracted every time we find an exposed conductor or cable. Same for sharp edges. Again, 1 is given straight away, and 0.2 marks are subtracted every time we see it. Caution labels then. As I said, you need at least 4, really. 5 or more is desirable, but at least 4. They need to be specified in Portfolio A as to where they are, and there's marks for that as well. But for every one that is not placed where it's said to be in Portfolio A, or if there is no listings for where they should be in Portfolio A, or there are no caution labels, then you will receive 0 marks. Otherwise, for each missing or incorrect one, we will remove 0.2 marks. So we check them as detailed here. All exposed parts will be checked. You find that's the only time the judges really touch your project, but we have to in order to ascertain if there's sharp edges and burrs, etc. We will expect you to place it on the floor where we can see. We will not lift it up to look underneath, but we will trust you and assume that there are no conductors underneath. Okay. Nothing can be bent or physically moved. Okay. 5.8 then. The system shall have a manual propulsion system. So this is kind of an emergency backup. Let's say your batteries die completely and you don't want to be carrying the personal transport system, as it was there to stop you having to walk. So if you don't want to walk, then you really don't want to carry it while walking. So some kind of manual propulsion system will be needed. So the battery, what we'll do with this one is we'll ask you to mount or board your system. We will ask you to disconnect the battery so that it cannot be used to run or charge it, and then you will demonstrate a manual propulsion system. Note, and this is the big note, manual propulsion system, if it is a skateboard for example, is not putting your foot on the floor and pushing. No part of the person demonstrating the system can touch the ground during the demonstration, so there must be another mechanism that allows it to be propelled. Not limited to pedals, yeah. There's no limits on whether this could be a pole that pushes. It can be anything you want. It could be a ratchet mechanism on a set of handlebars that allows you to do it. There are a lot of possibilities, yeah. But your system must include one to get these 2 marks. If for some reason you don't include one, it's an automatic 0. Stopping in a safe distance, 5.9. So the vehicle should be able to stop within 500 millimeters. We will ask you to drive your vehicle up to a line on a 3-2-1, and the nominated team member will move towards the line from 2 meters away. When you've covered the 2 meters in under 5 seconds, which means you have to hit a minimum speed, then you will be asked to stop, or you'll approach the line and stop. You will have 500 millimeters and only 500 millimeters to completely come to a halt without falling off, hopefully. And if that is the case, then you will be given the 1 mark. Now, we will time that meter from when the front wheel or wheels cross the line to where it stops, and the front wheels should be within the 500 millimeters. Speed test. Now this is quite an interesting one. The team must cover a distance of 10 meters in 3 seconds or less. We will have space for a small run-up, but it will only be a small run-up, and we will have space for a small braking area, but again a small braking area. Please, please, please do not drive it through my office wall. I will be in so much trouble if you do. So what we're looking for is a minimum of 12 kilometers per hour, and if you work out 12 kilometers an hour to cover 10 meters, that comes to 3 seconds. So it must reach a minimum of 12 kilometers per hour, perhaps a little bit faster to be safe. So we will ask you to start the run-up wherever you like, and when you cross the start of the 10-meter line, we will start a stopwatch. We will stop it when you cross the back end of the line. 3 judges will do all of that and make sure that the time is under 3 seconds. For example, if one judge says it's 2.98, one says it's 2.99, and one says it's 3.01, we would assume that it's under 3 seconds. If, however, all said it was 3.5, 3.6, and 3.1, for example, then, well, I hope we're not that inaccurate, but it could happen, then we would actually give you a 0. Okay, system interface. Now this is a little bit of a departure. This is an either or. This is a choose your method, but so there are 2 methods you can do. And the system interface is there to give information to the user of speed and battery status. So the first option you have is that these can be relayed by voice in 2-minute intervals. So a voice system saying your battery charge is, or a voice system your current speed is, and it must be relayed within 2 minutes. So 2 minutes is the maximum time it can have in between. Now the battery charge status relayed within 2 minutes from the last time it was told will receive 1 mark, and by relaying the speed within 2 minutes you will also get 1 mark. We'll ask you to demonstrate that, of course. The battery charge status shown as XX% using a display on user glasses, goggles or other eye covering. So basically we're looking for a display that can be worn, perhaps part of the helmet, and is in front of the eye so that it can be seen. Now we don't want that to block vision, obviously, so you'd have to look at some careful placement of that, but XX%, so 0 to 99% or 0 to 99% should be displayed of the battery charge status, and if you can do it that way you will receive 1.5 marks. If the current speed is shown as XX kilometers per hour using the same method, a head-up display or something over your eye, then we will give you 1.5 marks for that. However, you can only be awarded for the use of voice or for the use of glasses, so, or other eye covering. So if you presented the voice for battery and the current speed on a set of goggles, then we would only actually give you the 1 mark for battery, the lower one of the 2. Similarly, if you had speed by voice and battery charge status, we would only give you by eye covering, sorry, we would only give you the mark for the current speed. You will not receive a mark for a mix. So it's one system or the other, not a mixture, and you will only receive the marks if they are being in work. Okay, so we will ask you to demonstrate the system of choosing to the judge. If the voice system is chosen, then the speed and battery notifications must occur between 100 and 140 seconds apart. If the augmented reality glasses system is used, then you must be demonstrated by lifting the wheels from the floor and showing the variance of wheel speed. Okay, so as it says again, it is enough for the system to display voice or voice reasonable figures. We're not going to check them for accuracy, just for the technical ability to actually do it. Then we're going to have a straight line race. Now this is going to be fun. The teams will race a 20-meter course, although plan for a 20-meter course you may find that for some reason that due to NEC restrictions that we might have to have a shorter course, but we will try for 20 meters. At the moment that's planned in. So maximum marks for this 2 for the team with the fastest time to cover 20 meters, and going back to 3 seconds to cover 10 meters, we should be able to do this in 6. However, it is going to be from a standing start. You won't get a run up this time, so I'm expecting a time of around 10 seconds really, but of course some teams might be able to do it in half that time and some might take twice that time. So what will happen is, when we've recorded all times, the fastest team will receive 2 marks and the slowest team will receive 0. You must nominate a driver to attempt that, and you will be given a 3, 2, 1 go to start the stopwatch, and when you pass an end line you will be stopped. Flashing lights. 5.13. This should be an easy mark really, but we require flashing lights at the front of the personal transport system and flashing lights at the rear. So when the dead man's switch is pressed, and the system is active, those lights should be on. With it released, the vehicle should be stationary and those lights should be off. Now these are designed really to warn people in front or behind you that you're actually on a vehicle that is moving, a little bit like an emergency vehicle situation, but there because a personal transport system may be used amongst pedestrians, so we want it to attract attention. So with that in mind, two small LEDs that can barely be seen is probably not going to be good enough, so we need something a little bit more intense than that. Onboard charging system. Well, everything these days is USB powered, and really and truthfully you don't want to be carrying heavy cables and chargers around. So what we want is the personal transport system battery can be charged by an external power source. So we need some kind of regulation system in there, and we will be looking at your plans and circuit schematics to see if that's there. And you should be able to just plug in a simple cable, not an external charger. Or an external charger, and in fact I would urge you to use the external charger to just plug in, because that's far safer than plugging in a mains cable to something that's possibly unstable. So if you can regulate your voltage already down through a charging pack to, let's say, 18 volts or 24 volts, something of that order, 12 even better, then that's a much safer voltage and a much safer system. So we much prefer you did that. The personal transport system will also be required to have a working USB port, so that's going to require you to put in a regulator for the right voltage for USB, and we will plug in a device to check that there's actual supply coming from there and that we can charge a device from it. The personal transport system also must be powered by battery. Now this is a very easy mark because the battery can be powered anywhere, but no other means other than an electrical battery is allowed. Basically the NEC will not allow us to use petrol driven vehicles inside, for example, so it must be battery anyway. So this mark is just given to ensure that you comply with those rules. So it's an easy mark, have a battery, be able to point to the battery, and we give you the mark. So then we come to the biggie, the course time trial. Now this tends to be the main focus of every single team, and they seem to not always, but a lot of teams forget all the other details because this is the important thing. But note, it's only worth 4 marks. Yeah, that's not even 10% of this section, let alone the entire competition. So yes, it's important, yes you need to do it, yes scoring well is brilliant, but do not forget the other stuff and just concentrate on this, although I will admit this is the fun part. So what we're going to do is we're going to give you 4 sections, and you can cover those 4 sections at any order and any speed you like, but you must cover the 4 sections to get the best marks. So stage 1 is flat ground with turns, so nice and easy. You're just going to have to do a bit of a chicane manoeuvre, as Appendix 2 will show you. Stage 2, gravel and dust. We're going to have some gravel that's suitably muddy and dusty, all held in a frame, and you must be able to cover that. Stage 3 is uneven ground, much like most of our urbanised streets. They're not completely flat. You might have flagstones that have little nobules in between them to judder your vehicle. You might have a curb to negotiate. You might have changing heights of paths to negotiate, and all those kinds of things. So the uneven ground is there to simulate that. And also stage 4, a sand trap. So you have to be able to get through sand. Now why sand? Well, why not? But mainly because if you were to sell this to some of the hotter countries, sand blowing about all over the roads, etc., is quite a normal thing. So we're looking at, can you do this in pretty much every regard? We could have made it really difficult and asked you to go through water, but we think that's more of an international standard. So if you can complete stage 1 under power without touching the obstacles, falling or touching the ground in any way, you'll receive half a mark. The same for stage 2, 3 and 4. So that's 2 marks just for completing it. Then we will also be timing you doing this, and the fastest team will receive 2 marks, and the slowest team will receive 0 marks, and everybody else will be proportional between. Again, another CLES mark. Okay, so here's the evaluation process, and do take a bit of time to go through it. It is exactly the same as is written in the brief, and all of the evaluation processes are in the brief, so you should be paying a good amount of attention. So teams will be ranked in the following order is the important part. Fastest to slowest under power. So if you manage to complete the entire course under power, then you will be in the top section of scores. Fastest to slowest that use manual propulsion. So if you get 3/4 of the way round, half the way round, and your power fails for some reason and you have to use manual propulsion, then you can still score, but your score will be lower. You'll be ranked below those who finished it under power. And the furthest distance completed to the shortest. So this is for anybody who breaks down on the course. We will measure the distance and you will be ranked towards the bottom, but if somebody else doesn't make it as far as you, then you'll still be ranked above them. Now, those ranks will be given a proportional score out of the 2 marks under the CIS system, taking into account all of those things and which machine performed best. Distance covered. Let's hope that you don't have to resort to manual propulsion or resort to breaking down en route, because your next test is to complete 3 kilometers on 1 charge, and if you can do that you will get 0.5 marks, but the fastest team to do it will receive 1.5 marks. The slowest team to do it will receive 0 marks, but they'll still get the 0.5 for completing, and everybody else will get their 0.5 and a part of the 1.5 marks proportional to the speed they covered it. So, how fast can we do that? 5.18. This is a difficult one, but it's a little bit difficult to understand and quantify sometimes, but this comes in and pushes the aesthetic marks if you can hit these targets. So we're looking for the product to be finished. We're looking for the product to look like a real product, something that you go and buy in Argos or Asda or anywhere else, maybe online, Amazon, etc. Whatever it is that you would prefer, your preferred method of purchase. So we're looking for all viewable metal surfaces to be finished with a coating, a covering, so they could be sprayed, they could be coloured in with felt tips if you really must, covered with a vinyl, covered with stickers, covered in some way that hides the bare metal so that it starts to look more of a finished product. All motors, drive systems except wheels are covered and not accessible, so we're expecting covers to be over motors and not to have cogs hanging out in different places. We're expecting all the workings etc. to be hidden. And the personal transport system has a logo or graphics to identify the product. Give it a name. Give it something fancy that's pretty good, yeah? So if you look at the evaluation process, it gives you some examples of what coverings you could use, okay? And it's important for this one that that's actually done, because we're looking at trying to make a real world product. So consumer demonstration, we're going to get the public in, we're going to line up your personal transport systems, and we're going to ask each team to demonstrate this for 30 minutes. And judges will ask the public to view all 6 systems and grade them in order from most favourite to least. Okay, so they'll give you a score of 1 for their favourite and 6 for their least favourite, with all the others 2 to 5 in between, obviously. The team with the lowest score at the end of this will gain 2 marks. The team with the highest score, 0. Now, we are very aware that you will have friends, family, company representatives, etc., all coming to watch. So we will also do our best to find completely unbiased people who don't belong to any particular group that your team could be identified with, and we'll see what we can do from there. Conformity to drawings then. So we will take the drawings that you've handed in and submitted, and we will agree 4 common parts. What we will do is look at these 4 parts and measure them. Now, we can't take your vehicle apart to have a look inside it, so all we can do is rely on what's on show on the outside, and the 4 parts will be from this. We will measure them, we will check them, and we will make sure that they conform to the drawing. Now, you may lose a mark because you've drilled a hole in the wrong place. You could lose a mark because you've said that your bar is going to be 100 millimeters long plus or minus 1 millimeter, and we measure it to 102. There are lots of ways you can lose marks on this, but if you can make sure those parts are made exactly to the drawings that you did, with any holes and cuts and angles exactly correct, then you'll get the marks. If, and this is the big if, all 4 are correct, 1, 2, 3, 4, there is a bonus, and that's a bonus of an extra 0.4 marks. So if you only have 3 correct, you will get 1.2 marks, 2 correct 0.8, 1 correct 0.4, but if all 4 are correct, you get a bonus 0.4 marks, so you will score 2. And the last one is the packed volume. What we will ask you to do is pack your vehicle away into the rucksack with batteries, controls, everything, and put it on a bench. We will then measure the volume, and how we will calculate the volume is maximum length, maximum width, maximum height. We will not take account of any curves or anything like that. There's just no time to do all that at the competition. So it's the maximums that we will use, and we will calculate the volume. The smallest volume will receive 2 marks. The largest will receive 0. All other marks will be in between again, so it's another CIS mark. However, if any part of your vehicle is sticking proud outside of the rucksack, then we will not at any point consider you for this score. You will automatically receive a 0. So everything must be contained within the rucksack, nothing sticking out. Okay, so now we've finished that, the next section that we will look at is costings. And the costings are quite important. We've had the difference last year at the 2019 between gold and silver was 0.18 marks. And this section is worth 5 marks in total, but the working hours alone are worth 2.5 marks. So what we do is we ask you to book on and book off your stand. We ask you to book your machinery and usage of supplied machinery as well. This does include for the surprise project. If one person is working, it's considered all of the team is working, and you are costed for all team members, which is currently €90 an hour, or £90 an hour rather. If you do not book off and you go for lunch, if you've not found a judge to book yourself off, that's your problem. You will be costed for lunch. So it's important to get the booking right. And right at the end of this particular section, I'm going to go through the booking and how it's done. So there are a couple of forms, and we're going to look at them in a little bit more detail. But the team will receive 0 points for the most expensive costs, and that should say 2.5 points marks for the cheapest cost, not 5. I've missed the 2 on the front. So if you are coming in at £300, don't expect £300 to be your end game. There's a little section called compliance, and that compliance relates to the 41.5 marks. We will go through that in a minute. And if the higher you score on the 41.5 marks, the more compliant you are. The more compliant you are, the less your cost is adjusted by. Well, as I said, we'll explain that. But if you come in at working hours of £300, for example, and you're only 50% compliant, that will automatically double that to £600. Okay, so be aware of that, and that applies to all 3 costings. We will go through it, as I say. But in this particular case, it's how many team working hours you use. Now, the lowest, 2.5 marks. Simple as that. On the next section is additional costs for using equipment. Now this is worth 1.5 marks. So you have to hire the lathe on paper, a grinding bay on paper, welding equipment on paper, the guillotine, the press drill, the pillar drill, the cut-off saw, which may be a cut-off saw, maybe a bandsaw, depends what's supplied, and the box and pan for folding. All of those need to be booked. Now there is a cost for the use of each one. It is in your brief, so have a look at it. Okay, and we will transform things that way. So 1.5 marks for whoever uses the equipment for the least amount of time, and this again includes a surprise project, so we know you have to use them. It's just how little can you use them. And finally, this is an example. As I said, we'll come to it later. This is the example. So the equipment, for example, on this one, lathe, for Friday the 24th of the 1st, that's last year's competition dates. If you book it from 8:30 in the morning, I will ask you to come to me or come to one of the other judges to book it, and you might book lathe 1. And you might say to me that it's an hour that you're booking it for. So I will book you from 8:30 till 9:30 and I will sign it. If you have not booked it, you cannot use the machinery, and we do check all the time to make sure that the machinery is booked. Okay. Somebody else might then book for 2 hours on number 2 and 2 hours on number 3. If another team books directly after you and you overrun, you are expected to vacate the machine at exactly 9:30, if that's the last time you should be using it. If you haven't cleaned it down by that time, you will be issued a clean down penalty as well. However, if no other team has booked after you and you overrun, that time can be added by asking a judge to add it to the booking sheet. This then is the team booking sheet. Okay, so first we have your working time, and then when you come to use the lathe at 8:30, you will come to the judge and say, I've booked the lathe for 8:30, can you book me as going on please? And when you have finished, you will ask a judge to check that you've cleaned down the machine properly and book off. This is the one we will use for actual time. So it's your team booking sheet that will give us the actual time, but we will check it against the other booking sheet. If you booked for a shorter time than you used, you will be booked at the longest time, which will be on this sheet. If, however, you only use 45 minutes on this sheet, but you booked an hour on the other sheet, you will be given the hour time. So be careful to make sure you are booking the amount of time you actually need, and I realise how difficult that is to judge, but that's part of the challenge. The final one is raw materials, and that is 1 mark. So when you hand in your portfolio A, it will include a spreadsheet, which I'm going to look at in a second, and that spreadsheet will give me a total cost. It will give me a full list of all your materials. That total cost we will look at and say, oh, right, Team A spent £400, Team B spent £450, but Team F has spent £16,500. I think £16,500 might be the most expensive. You'll receive 0. The £400 being the cheapest, you receive the 1 mark. Okay. So, just to have a quick look, we'll go through the spreadsheet now. Okay, so here's the spreadsheet, and it's the list of all materials and components. You need to change UK team to your team, and this is an example of the spreadsheet used by the team out in Kazan in 2019. So, what you should have is item number 1. Which drawing that item is on. So, you might have called it assembly 2, as they have here. It might be that that particular piece comes onto assembly 1. It might be that it's on drawing A107. We don't know. Whatever your drawing convention number is, it needs to match in there. You give it a name. So for example, this is a 150 tooth pulley. This section should actually then collate to what it's actually called on the website that you get the evidence from. So in this particular case, it's quite a long name. In some cases, Form C washers, much easier. But you need to put in that section the exact title of what it is you're referring to. You then put in the quantity that you're using, 1, for example. And let's say you had a quantity of 20 there. You might be using it in several drawings, so you need to put all of the drawing numbers here. But in this case, 1. The purchase is per piece. It could be per pack. It could be per meter. Yeah, but in this particular case, it's per piece. The currency you purchased it in is Great British Pounds. Might be something else. Might be US dollars. Could be Chinese yen. Then that price is converted using these currency conversion rates on the first page to the price in euros. Then the price in euros is then multiplied by the quantity automatically for you and should give you a total price. Next to that, you need evidence. You need a web page address putting in of where you got it. So for example, on this item, and I will just press it, should come up in a few seconds, I should be able to track through exactly where you purchased everything and is it a valid price. Now, I don't necessarily expect the price that you see to be, that I see to be the same price as you may have had it on the catalogue, but I do expect it to be reasonably close. Particularly if you buy things outside of the UK, we are aware that prices will fluctuate as the conversion and currency rates fluctuate. So we do look for, is it a reasonable price? Okay, and up comes our web page, and as we can see, the price at the moment is £21.43. However, the real price is £27.83. You are not allowed to use discounted prices, so this one is an invalid price, and this is the one that should be applied. If you apply this one and not this one, we will add that cost there times 3 to your actual cost as a penalty for doing it wrong. Okay, so if I have a look, and let's assume £27.83 is the correct price. If I have a look on here, it's £26.93 they said. It's within £1. I would say that is probably correct, and the fluctuations in prices and exchange rates allow for that. Okay, we'll go on down a little bit further. We do all the mechanical components in this section and all the electronic components in this section. Okay, all by the same format. Where it differs is raw materials, and on the side here you have raw materials cost per weight. We do not want anywhere on here to see a web address. We're not bothered by that. We are literally looking at what is the weight and what is the cost of that. So in this particular case, angle iron or steel. So I'm looking down this list, and mild steel is £7 per kilogram. So I have got a 50 by 40 by 3mm thick, 480mm long piece of angle that weighs 1.01 kilos. I've got 4 of them, so the unit price is 7, and that will convert into 28 euros. Okay. Similarly, down here I might have a box section, okay, and the weight of that is only 0.15 kilograms at 7, so it's only 1.05 euros. PCB is done in square centimeters, and it's 25 cents per square centimeter, so you need to work out the area. And batteries are done by watt hour. Now, batteries can be 2 different prices. So lead, NiCad and nickel metal hydride are 25 cents per watt hour, but any kind of lithium battery is 75 cents per watt hour. So I need to work out how many watt hours, apply them to this spreadsheet, and we get a total cost. Now, it's critical that you use this spreadsheet correctly. It's critical that you put everything in the right categories. Anything omitted that is obvious from your drawings or your assemblies that we see, we will add at 3 times the cost. Anything that you've done wrong, we will add at 3 times the cost. If you put in a price that you purchased these raw materials at, we will actually apply these costs at 3 times the cost, because those are the ones you should have done. Hopefully that's pretty clear, and the spreadsheet's pretty simple, and the template for it will have been sent to you along with the link for this video and other documentation. So once the raw materials are done, we have to look at compliance. And compliance is a simple thing. Total cost divided by 100 times the percentage of compliance to specification. Now, the 41.5 marks from section A, the main project, will form that compliance to specification. So if you score 20.75, you are 50% compliant. And 50% compliant here, if the total cost is 2,500 and you're only 50% compliant, it doubles it. If your compliance is 49.99% or less, then you get no marks for the costing section at all. It must be at least 50% compliant. If your cost is 2,500 euros and you're only 80% compliant, then this formula will change that cost to 3,125. And hopefully nobody's that expensive on anything, fingers crossed, but you may well be. So we'll give a reasonable example. If you were €400 in cost and 50% compliant, it becomes €800. If your working hours were €900 and you are 50% compliant, it changes it to 1,800. So you need to get to as close to 100% compliant as possible to score well in the costings. Now, it is only 5 marks, and it's not the end of the day if you don't score well, and somebody has to come last. That's the way it works. But it's not the worst thing, and that's why it's only 5 marks. You can still win if you are good on all the other stuff. But if you're good on all the other stuff, that would include Section A, which means your compliance should be pretty good. Now, where this differs, most of the CIS marks we've talked about before, you have the highest gets the top score, or the lowest gets the top score, depending on which way, the best performer, we should say. The worst performer gets 0 marks, and everybody else is graduated in between. On the costings, the best or lowest cost sets a benchmark. Once you are 100% above that benchmark, you score 0. So, if the benchmark is €100 and you are €160, then you will only score 4/10 of the mark. If you are €210, you will score 0. And we have had years where teams have been incredibly quick compared to everybody else to build it. So their labour cost was low, their materials cost was low because they had a simple but effective design, and possibly even their machining time was low because they designed it in a way that used minimal machining, and they didn't spend much time on the surprise projects. The one team that I've got in mind actually scored so poorly on the surprise projects that they dropped themselves from gold to silver position doing that. But there was, out of all the marks available, they basically knocked 4 of the other teams out of scoring at all. I believe in one category, one team scored a very small mark, and in the second costing category, another team scored, but nobody scored in anything else because they played that to the nth degree of being a very, very good at rigging the costings or sorting the costings to make sure nobody else scored. That gave them a 10 mark, as it was then, would be a 5 mark now, advantage. So, on to Portfolio A. What do we want from Portfolio A? And this is important stuff because a lot of Portfolio A is going to be asked for in the qualifier, but that's a separate video to watch. So we're looking for a video that you can display to the public, or I can display to the public on one of our screens, that lasts between 240 and 300 seconds, so 4 to 5 minutes. If your time falls between 240 and 300, you will score 0.05 marks. So we're asking then for a demonstration of the basic operation of the personal transport system with real design and users. So remove it from the backpack and prepare for use. A video of one of you doing that. Moving the transport system forwards, backwards, possibly through left and right turns. Again, one of you doing that. And a demonstration of the personal transport system being packed away. So basically, take a video of you taking it out of the bag, running through a few turns and maneuvers with it, putting it back in the bag, voila. Each of those 3 elements scoring 0.05 marks. A CAD animated film on how to assemble and disassemble all the parts, so you need to use presentation mode on Inventor or something similar. You can use other software, and create that video, and you will score 0.2 marks for that. And then you will score 0.1 marks for the performance specification of your personal transport system, so things like weight, sizes, speed, battery longevity, all those things listed, you will score 0.1 marks for. The video must have English captions, but you can duplicate that into another language if you wish, 0.1 marks. Details of the team member, so team member pictures, country, UK, could be Wales, could be Scotland, could be England, you can take your pick, or you could just put UK, we're quite happy with that. Your date of birth, educational and vocational background, a little mini CV, what role you perform in the team, and that will score 0.1 marks. And then we're looking for a marketing video to come on the end of it as well, which is showing the logo and the name of the product. So a clear logo, clear name on a screen for a few seconds will get you that. 4 unique selling points. Now this is asked for in the brochure as well, so 4 unique selling points should be perfectly easy to come up with. Where you can purchase the product, well, obviously you're not selling it anywhere at the moment, but you can put in fake retail details. If you wish, you can all sell it through Woolworths. I don't think they exist anymore. Product demonstration in the real world, so just demonstrate the actual product being used, a few shots of it doing fancy tricks or speeding past the camera, going through turns, that kind of thing. The kind of thing that you'd expect. So if you had a car manufacturer making a video, they'd always have the car running towards the camera and past, or they'd have it going, if it was a four-wheel drive off-road, etc. So those kind of things that you would use as marketing tools, and it's a good idea to have a look at car videos or bike videos or other sales videos of similar products that you can nick some ideas for. We're going to have a look at the quality of video design. So is it the kind of thing that reasonably could capture a market? If so, we'll give you 0.05 marks. But we also need you to supply some background music from a copyright-free source. And if you go onto YouTube and type in copyright-free music, there is loads of it. But just to make sure that it's copyright-free, we need you to quote the track title and the artist. And when you hand in that on familiarization day, I will be sat in the evening with your video, checking that the title and artist quoted are actually copyright-free music. So this is quite important. A few things that have gone on, and way things have changed over the last couple of years. It is important that your team name is not your company name, or if your team name is your company name, do not put it on the video. Okay. Basically, to comply with the WorldSkills UK rules regarding advertising, people pay for advertising during the show, so your company cannot receive that for free. However, that doesn't stop you using indirect references, wearing company logos, for example, on your PPE as you're creating the video is not a problem. Workwear being worn during the competition that with your company logo on is not a problem. That's fine. But team names cannot be that of the company name or cannot appear on the video. And if they don't appear on the video, we're going to struggle a little bit to actually know whose video it is to market. But we can get around that, so don't worry. So, for example, if you worked for Airbus and your team is Airbus number 1, please don't put it on the video. Okay. But if you work for Airbus and your team name is Dilbert's Crew, that's fine. Dilbert's Crew can go on the video. That's not a problem at all. So the next thing we will look for is a list of materials and components provided by the team. So that spreadsheet we looked at a moment ago, if that is complete and contains all raw materials, all purchased items and everything, and we don't find mistakes with it, you get a mark. If you have an evidence link of all the raw materials, and when we check a sample they all come out correct, then you'll get half a mark. And if it's done in English, you'll get half a mark. Now that might seem a bit of a strange mark, but that's in line with what you get at an international competition, because don't forget we have several countries competing, yet WorldSkills international competitions are conducted in English. So we ask for everything in English, so in line with that you're getting the same sort of marks as you would at an international. We're then going to ask you for an operation and maintenance manual to include setup of the personal transport system, an operation of the personal transport system. Now those 2 points go back to the judges packing and unpacking. Those need to be very clear, very well pictured, documented, whatever you want, in order to make sure that we can actually use them. But also that's going to feed into these 2 marks. If you've got really good instructions with real clear pictures, lots and lots of arrows and knowing exactly what we're talking about, then brilliant. That's going to help with your grade on this. So we also want replacement of batteries, wheels and or tracks, because you may have a tracked vehicle. Safe operating procedures. Yeah, so how do we operate it safely? What are the parameters we can't do? For example, can we take an electric vehicle and run it through 6 feet of water? Or is it safe only up to 5 centimeters of water? Is it safe to go near water at all? We don't know. It needs to be presented in a folder, and it needs to have a list and place of caution labels of the personal transport, and it must be in English. Now we're going back to these. you do not meet the market standard. It's 0 marks if you do not have all of those elements in it. The judge will automatically give you 0 marks. If you satisfy the industry standard, as in it's a industry type technical manual with all of the detail but not very well presented, it's not glossy, it's not showy, then you satisfy the industry mark, the judge is likely to give you a scale 1. If you satisfy the market standard, which is slightly above that, that's the kind of thing you'd expect to come with a product you'd purchase. So if you've got a new microwave, what's the kind of standard that come with that? What kind of manual do you get when you buy a car? That kind of thing. That's satisfying the market standard. But you can exceed the market standard by first satisfying the market standard and then by giving additional information that wasn't asked for in the brief. So if we go back to that list, is there things you can tell us that were not asked for? If there are, then you could be looking at scale 3. List of jigs and fixtures. So there should be a photograph of any jigs in your portfolio and any fixtures you're going to use to manufacture the item. They should be numbered and they should also be in red. In your portfolio there should be the photograph of the real item with the number or code that is on that item, and it should be identified. So we need to be able to say, right, portfolio A says there are 6 jigs, there are 7 here. Why are there 7 here when there should only be 6? It's okay, one's a spare duplicate, obviously it breaks often. That's fine. They've listed 6 jigs, they've actually bought 24. Hang on a minute, they're all different, none of them do the same. Well, you can only have the 6 that you listed in your portfolio. So if you don't list the jig, we will take it off you. And also the list of jigs and fixtures will not be complete, so you will not get this mark either. So both of those things need to be taken into account. Then we're going to ask you for some sales brochures. We ask you to provide 5 each of a sales brochure in English and a sales brochure in another language, any other language you like. We can all use Google Translate, and we can use Google Translate to check it. The brochure must include 10 photographs, at least 10 photographs. Okay. Some of those we will allow to be 3D renderings in CAD if they are good quality renderings. The brochure must contain at least 4 reasons to purchase the product, so 4 unique selling points. So it's faster than anything else on the market. It's bright green and that's the best colour on the planet. Whatever your unique selling point is. Yeah. The brochure explains the use of all control systems and the outputs of from the LCD panel, or the voice outputs, or the head-up display outputs. It has to explain those. The brochure includes the time the battery will last in the project under use and standby. So if I leave it turned on in my garage for the 8 hours I go to sleep, will it still be operational when I get in the morning? And how long can I actually use it, and how far can I actually take it before it's going to run out? The brochure must be printed in full colour, no black and whites, and the brochure is made from A4, centrally stapled and neatly folded into A5. So if you've got one sheet, you get it all on one sheet, double side printed, fold it down the middle, we won't be looking for staples. If it's 2 sheets, they should be centrally stapled. It has to be an A5 brochure, and any other shape or type of brochure than is listed there will score 0 marks. The brochure is sufficient quality to attract potential customers. Now, we're going to actually do a little bit something different there. Sorry, I shouldn't have clicked. We're going to do something a little bit different there, and we're actually going to go out and talk to the public, show them a copy of your brochure, the English one more than likely, and say, would this convince you to have a look at buying the product? If 50% or more say yes, you're going to get the 0.4 marks. If we get a lot of no's, don't like that, it's not, no, that's not for me, that's not something, I don't like that, any kind of negative comments for more than 50%, and you're going to get 0 marks. So we're also going to ask you to present a Gantt chart. If you don't know what a Gantt chart is, look it up on Google, but hopefully you're engineering students and you should. So what we're going to say is, we're going to ask you to predict the times taken to complete each of the activities, including the 9 surprise elements. Now, the 9 surprise elements are designed to take 3 hours. for each team member. So 3 hours of electronics, 3 hours of fabrication and weld, and 3 hours of machining. Some of you might be able to do it a lot quicker than that. If you're confident, you're really good at what you do, you might be able to get in a lot quicker. Some of you might take a little bit longer, so you've got to take that into account with this Gantt chart. Are you a really good machinist, or are you an average machinist, or are you a slow but deliberate machinist? Take that into account. The idea is it should take you about 3 hours. It could take you more. Okay, so what we're going to then do is we're going to take all of your times that you've got listed on the previous sheets we looked at in the costing section. We're going to total it all up, and we're going to say, right, took team A 20 hours. Their Gantt chart said it should have taken 20 hours and 3 minutes. They're within 5%, so they're going to get 1 mark. Team B should have taken 18 hours, but they actually took 20. Oh, hang on. Well, they're within the 6 to 10%. Are they? No, they're just outside of that. So they're within the 11 to 20%, so they're going to get 0.6 marks. And then it's normal to have portfolio B up to 3 times. Now, that sounds a little bit strange, so let me go through it. On familiarization day, we will need portfolio B, i.e. all of your drawings, to check your toolbox and check your materials are correct, and to check your materials are brought in acceptably 50 millimeters oversize in one direction for lengths, in 2 directions for sheets. We need to be able to check that, so we need a set of your drawings. So we will ask you on familiarization day to hand those in. You will also need a set that you can use to build your project. Now, you are allowed to bring those on coloured paper, not white, it has to be coloured, and with draft written on them. Now you can have 1 set, 2 sets, 27 sets, that's up to you. You might have a set per person, you might have 1 set between you, that's fine, but you're going to need that to build your project. You can also be used to copy to create the 3rd set, and the 3rd set during competition is the set of CAD drawings that you hand in to be marked. So we're probably going to mark your first set that you hand in on familiarization day just to save time, and then we are going to compare the set you hand in to that and make sure that they are the same. Where they are not the same, we will take the marks from the one that you hand in. Where they are the same, we will take the marks that we already have. This is just a time saving element for the judges. So first set handed on familiarization day, second or third or fourth set or multiple sets, coloured paper, draft written on them. You can use them for your build, you can use them to copy for the 3rd set, which is to be handed in by 12 PM on the Friday, and will form the marks for your drawings. So portfolio B is made up of different types of drawings. We have the 2D detail drawings for your product, and there is a YouTube video that you can access that you will have been sent the link to. Lasts about an hour. It takes you through the expectations for 2D detail drawings. There's also the 3D assembly drawings that you need to do, and the 3D assembly drawings just come along with the 2D. It should be using the same or similar title block, should be ballooned and numbered, should have consistent numbering that refers to your 2D detail drawings. That's explained in the video as well. And then there is an electronic schematic diagram. Now, long ago in the MTC you used to be able to draw a block diagram, but now we actually want a correct schematic, and it needs to be done with Autodesk Eagle. That's an online package that you can download and access for free, providing you're a student and got a .ac.uk account. Okay, so as it says at the bottom, Inventor or AutoCAD is there for use for the 2D and 3D mechanical drawings, and Eagle must be used for the electronic schematics. The level that we've had of drawings is a bit hit and miss. Some teams get it very, very well, some teams don't. Okay, so a lot of those teams don't really understand. They might have had a really good product but poor drawings, and then, well, how have we scored so low? And the drawings is quite a whack of marks, so that's how is the answer. So what we've done is put up that video to help you, but really easily the simple answer is the drawings must be done to ISO standards. Yeah, and that's often missed. What we get is drawings that don't have all of the items that you would in an ISO standard. However, There are also elements that are there by precedence from the MTC competitions, both national and international around the world, and elements that are asked for because they satisfy part of the technical description for the MTC. So it's important you watch that video so that you know what is supposed to be there. Okay, then there are surprise projects, and you will receive 3 surprise projects. The first one will be turning. It could be aluminium or steel. You will be given 3 basic tools, a parting off tool and 2 cutting tools, and you will be asked to use only them to produce a turned item with turned diameter tolerances of plus or minus 0.05 as a maximum. Normally it is 0.05 total, so it should be plus or minus 0.025, but we can at a national do plus or minus 0.05. You will also receive a steel welding and fabrication project, so there will be some sheet to fabricate, there will be some bits to weld together, and it may be that the sheet welds to some box section, for example, or some angle. It could be that they're treated as different, and we ask you to make a fabricated sheet part and a welded part separately. Angles to plus or minus 1 degree and sizes to plus or minus 1 millimeter is normal. Outside that, you lose the marks. And then the electronics surprise project will be a kit, usually something like a Velleman kit or an RK kit or a Rapid kit, one of those types of things. You will be given that with all the instructions that normally come with it, and you will be asked to perform function tests, such as a flashing light must flash at a certain rate, or you might have an LCD output and it must say certain things. It might be that it's a sound generator and it has to make 3 or 4 different types of sound, like a laser gun and a police siren, etc. But more importantly than the function tests, we will look at the soldering quality, and what we're looking for there is, are all splashes removed and mitigated? Is the soldering done without burning or dulling the solder? Is there any dry joints? Is there any broken track where pads, etc. have been clearly pulled off? Those kind of quality checks. So what we're looking for is a very nicely made circuit, so soldered very nice on the bottom, nice round and bright shiny solder joints. Okay, so just a few little tips, and it's not an exhaustive list, but it's going to help you. So where possible, and I do understand this year COVID-19, colleges shut down, workplaces shut down, that kind of thing, this is going to be a little more challenging than normal. We all get that at WorldSkills, trust me. So we would suggest that what you do is practice the build to ensure every team member knows what they're doing and when, and to ensure your Gantt chart is as close to what will really happen as possible. Don't over design. Simple is usually better, and it really is usually better because it's better to make and it's easier to draw, but it's harder to design, and it's hard to get the balance right between build and function. So build ease, great, it's easy to build, but it doesn't do everything it's supposed to do, and it doesn't function very well, and it's not as quick as somebody else's, and it's heavier and things like that. That can be that can cause you problems in other places. So you need to get the balance right between simple to build and as functional as possible. Don't forget portfolio A and B, or the surprise projects. That comes to a total of just under 70%. 68.5% of the mark this year is on portfolio A, B and the surprise projects. So yes, it's important to get the test project right, but don't forget that element as well. So I've sent you some links to some paperwork, so you need to study the paperwork, study the technical description, study the guide documents and brief, treat them as your Bible because they really are, and most of all, make sure you know what can and cannot be done. Yeah. So, can I bring a pillar drill so that I don't have to book one? No. You must use any equipment that's supplied by us if it's supplied by us. However, you could bring a pistol drill because that's not a pillar drill, for example. Yeah. Drawing order when you come to the CAD is absolutely essential to get to reduce your time on Inventor and Eagle, and don't expect to have drawn it once, turn up with it to copy and think that you're going to do it brilliantly, because you probably won't, especially not under pressure and with the distraction of a crowd. Make sure you've practiced it, whoever your CAD operator is and whoever's doing the schematic, which could be the same person, could be two different people. Make sure that that is practiced, and you can do it in your sleep. Make sure you get the order right, because getting the order right means minimal changes of one part makes it another part, and that's explained in the video to you as well. That's really critically important to cut down the time the CAD operator has to spend. Refer to the YouTube videos. That, as I said, will give you some of those tips. Yeah, the video and Portfolio A are done before competition, so you've got time. You're not rushed, you're not pressured, you haven't got 100,000 people walking past you, so get it right, but be very literal. If it says all controls, it means all controls. A key switch, or an emergency stop, a handlebar, they're all controls. Make sure all of the controls are there, not just some of them. Know the standards required. So the guide document shows you what's needed for Portfolio B, and the video shows you, but you can also look at the ISO standards or BS 8888. That's pretty much the same as ISO standards, and either of those will show you exactly what the drawings should contain. Yes, your company might do it a different way, that's their choice. We're not your company, and we are looking at the international standards. Okay, costing is important. It's small marks, and don't forget you can buy your product at your local hardware store for £5, and you can find it online somewhere else for 53p. You can use the 53p, but you cannot use discount prices. You can only use the full cost. Okay. Ensure you use the template and use it properly for raw material costs. Not using it properly will either give you penalties for stuff and added costs, and your costs will start to spiral, or you'll just lose the 1 mark. In best case scenario. Okay, so thanks very much. Hopefully I will speak to you all soon. Don't forget my email address is dayton.unit@cambria.ac.uk. Do get in touch. Do come and have a chat if you've got any questions or queries. But for now, that's the briefing for this particular section, which is the main competition in November only. Please refer to the other videos for help with the drawings, help with the schematics, and most importantly the guide for the qualifier, as this year it will not be based on the main test project quite so much as it has been previously. Thank you.